WWF King of the Ring, the last WWF video game to grace the Nintendo Entertainment System, is the stereotypical LJN published video game. Everything's wrong on so many levels, I guess I should elaborate a bit. King of the Ring features 10 of the top WWF superstars of the time. This was released around 1993. So you'd have guys like Bret Hart, Hulk Hogan, Undertaker, Bam Bam Bigelow, Macho Man Randy Savage, Shawn Michaels, Mr. Perfect, just to name a few. And of course there's also you, the generic superstar who can be renamed and given customized statistics. Unfortunately, you are a generic looking character wearing what appears to be a brownish loincloth. Absolutely riveting. That has superstar written all over that gimmick. Oh yeah. So there's 4 main modes of play in King of the Ring. One-on-one, which is essentially a quick one-on-one match. Basic exhibition match. Tag team, which is a quick tag team contest. Tournament, your typical championship mode where you pick a wrestler and have to beat all the rest to lay claim to the World Wrestling Federation Championship belt. And finally, we have the King of the Ring tournament where you partake in a tournament to be crowned the King of the Ring. And that's all there is to King of the Ring, and in fairness, it's a somewhat modest package and you can't really expect much. Still, the game feels somewhat lacking. Perhaps this has something to do with the fact that each and every one of these superstars have the exact same moveset. Yep, 4th in a series of these games based on the same promotion, and we've regressed to every wrestler having the same exact set of body slams, elbow drops, scoop slams, and stuff. No signature maneuvers like sharpshooters or tombstone pile drivers or banzai drops. Not even a leg drop of doom to be found here. It's all slam this and elbow that and drop kicks and stuff. The statistical differences between the 11 superstars are minimal at best because they pretty much move and play the same way. For a 1993 NES wrestling game, that's pretty lame. Hell, even Pro Wrestling, a game released in 1986, had a more varied move palette among its 6 wrestlers. I guess I could take comfort in the fact that control is actually functional and it's possible to pull off moves and stuff. There's no delay in response time or fiddling through complex button combinations just to figure out how to pin the guy. Mind you, most of the match is usually spent button mashing while both wrestlers are grappling in order to get a move in, but at the very least you could argue that the game's somewhat playable, and it works to a certain extent, but that's about it. It just works. It's there. Who cares, really? 11 guys to choose from and they all play the same way. So you're basically playing the same match every single time, just with different skins. It's like playing a game of Mortal Kombat that's hacked around to the point where you have 7 palette swaps of the same ninja character and they all have the exact same moveset. You know, after a while it gets pretty boring. Again, for a 1993 wrestling game on the NES. This is pretty sad considering that in 1986, Pro Wrestling was released and was a really slick wrestling title with 6 wrestlers boasting different movesets and mannerisms. Or if you want to stick within the realm of sports entertainment video games on the NES, WrestleMania Challenge actually gave the 9 superstars in that game different movesets. And that game was released in 1990, so yeah, this is just sad. Right off the bat, visually speaking, King of the Ring looks like crap. The character portraits are kind of weak, only barely looking like the superstars they're supposed to represent, and they're poorly drawn to boot. And then there's the in-ring action. While the arena itself doesn't look too bad, the bluish audience sort of reminds me of a SmackDown taping from a few years prior. The wrestlers themselves look similar to each other, save for different colored tights and hair. Granted, there are some folks you could recognize right off the bat, such as Hogan and Bret and Bam Bam and whatnot. But as for the rest, you could have called them by any other generic sounding name and it would not have mattered. Sure, the models are rather large in comparison to prior efforts, but that's extremely faint praise at best when the models aren't that great looking to begin with. Again, I hate to make this comparison, but Pro Wrestling had much better looking wrestlers that are similar in height, and that game came out much earlier, and it looks better too. Sound is weak all around. I could sorta applaud the attempt at implementing digitized sound effects into the game, so crowd cheers sound like crowd cheers, punches sound like punches, and so on and so forth. If nothing else, it makes King of the Ring stand out with its digitized sound effects. The problem with digitized sound in general on the NES is that it's always poor quality. There's always a rough or scratchy sounding quality to these sounds. I mean, here, have a listen for yourself. Again, I'll give designers Grey Matter credit for going the all-digital route here. It's not something you come across often on the NES, it's just rough sounding and somewhat distracting at times, but hey, it's a rare high point in a game that doesn't really have all that much. Music is at a bare minimum here, which is probably a good thing because the musical compositions and recreations of the wrestlers' theme songs sound like they were composed on a toy keyboard made for babies. I mean, they just sound really awful here. Are you sure this game was licensed by Nintendo? Because it sure doesn't sound like it. It sounds like something out of an unlicensed garbage game. Sad. By the way, check out Undertaker's theme. How do you fuck up the Dead Man's theme? Sad. Out of all the WWF video games released on the Nintendo Entertainment System that I've played, King of the Ring gives the original WrestleMania game a run for its money as the worst of the bunch. King of the Ring, to its credit, is a slightly better game in that it's remotely playable and the use of digitized sound is an admirable effort if nothing else, but despite all that, King of the Ring comes off as something of a lazy effort. It seems like nobody cared about delivering a quality video game and just rushed this thing out to retail just to get it over and done with. The end result is a last hurrah on the NES that is simply lackluster and offers no real discernible reason to spend your money on it. It's simply sad that the earliest attempts at an NES pro wrestling video game manages to be a fun and deep experience, while one of the last attempts is so far below the standard of quality that it's downright embarrassing. Overall, King of the Ring is a pretty mediocre video game, and it's probably not worth the effort in tracking down unless you really want to fill your collection of wrestling games. I don't know what else to add here. Brett, what do you think?
Thought it was mediocre at best, and maybe a 4 out of 10 or 3 out of 10.
You're way too generous, sir. Way too generous.